First tonight, I want to show you a letter that Kimberly Kitching wrote after she was hauled into Kimberly Keneally's office and unfairly dumped from Labor's Tactics Committee. We've been hearing all week from people who didn't support Kitching, who demoted her and froze her out, that there's nothing to see when it comes to her treatment. So let's look at Kimberly, what she had to say herself in this letter I've got here about how she was treated by Labor's Senate leadership team. It's a 7-page letter, and as I said, she wrote it after she was called into a meeting with Keneally. She was read a series of accusations and dumped from Labor's Tactics Committee. No procedural fairness, no opportunity for her to object to the claims that had been made against her. This letter was given to me by people very close to her after they watched senior Labor figures try to dismiss any suggestion that she was subject to unfair treatment by Penny Wong and Christina Keneally. In the letter, she provides a detailed rebuttal to the claims that she warned Liberal Minister, then Defence Minister Linda Reynolds, about the Brittany Higgins affair. She says this was impossible because she didn't know about the matter ahead of time, ahead of the news reports. Here's what she writes. She says there's a fine line between the entirely normal contest of political rivals or rival ideas and what could reasonably be characterised as a campaign of bullying. She writes, that's something I think all senators should reflect on within our caucus and beyond it. Standards in workplaces have changed, and we should all think about the application of those standards to ensure a safe workplace for everyone here. Of course, she's referring to Parliament House. She then calls for a fair and transparent process for dealing with matters like hers, where she was unfairly punished for something she says she didn't do and didn't have an opportunity to argue her case. And let's take the quote from her letter. While Senator Reynolds' claims are easily dispensed with, as I have demonstrated, that might not always be the case in these situations. So a fair, transparent process for dealing with these matters is probably welcome and prudent. Outlining how you think this might work going forward might be usefully discussed at a Senate caucus meeting. Kitching even weaves in the letter that she'd heard multiple times from Liberal sources that Penny Wong had made, and this is her word, lurid remarks about her. Kitching finalised her letter and printed it out to deliver by hand to Christina Keneally. She's the Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the Senate, and she printed it out on June 21st, 2021. Instead of delivering the letter, Kitching decided to have a one-on-one, a face-to-face meeting with Richard Marles, the Deputy Labor Leader, to present her case as she outlined it in her letter. And she met with him the very next day, June 22nd, in his office. She told me she chose to go to Richard, those close to her said that Kitching told them she chose to go to Richard Marles because he was the most senior person in her faction who she felt could protect her. Marles this week has repeatedly refused to say what action he took, if any, after Kitching made that complaint to him. And she wasn't the only one to raise it with him either. Bill Shorten did as well. Meanwhile, Anthony Albanese, he says there's no need for an inquiry.
Given that they are hurting and they are calling for inquiry, why can't it be tested with an inquiry? They are serious allegations.
Well, if we have a process established, which is there. The statements that have been made have been answered by the people who've been directed to. When people have raised issues with me, I've directed it. I've seen, for example, the issue of, and I do think this is, I've got to say, I think this is an unfortunate discussion to have 2 days before a funeral of someone, but the media continue to ask these questions, and that is unfortunate, but I understand that people are also pushing these issues.
The media continue to ask these questions? Albanese is blaming the media for all of this. when it's those closest to Kitching who are upset about how she was treated and the stress that she was under in the final year of her life, and particularly before she passed away. Those close to Kitching, and remember, she complained about this twice herself, first to Richard Marles and then to external workplace advisors. But it's Kitching's best friend who went public in a very powerful account in the Herald Sun this weekend. Diana Asmar, the head of the Health Workers Union, gave a heartbreaking account of what Kitching went through. She says Kitching is the sister she never had. They were that close. Here's what she says. She was the subject of horrendous workplace bullying at the hands of people that may go on to lead our nation. She confided in someone she had known for decades, Labor's Deputy Leader Richard Marles. He told the ABC a year ago this week regarding allegations of the poor treatment of women in the ALP by men, that to all those women who are having the courage to tell their story, I believe them. It seems, however, that when a brilliant female senator brings allegations to the deputy leader of the ALP, all she gets is that of Sergeant Schultz. He knows nothing. Diana Asmar goes on to say, Kimberley tried to resolve the issue in a number of ways. People in authority, no less than the deputy leader of the party, the head of her faction, neither believed her as Marles said he would, nor thought her courageous as Marles said he would, nor acted as Marles said he would. In the months and weeks leading up to her death, she had broken out in rashes visible around her neck. Her hands started shaking uncontrollably in meetings, and her upper lip would quiver at the mention of Anthony Albanese or Penny Wong. These words from Diana, beyond heartbreaking, devastating, distressing. It's not surprising that some of Kitching's friends this week are questioning what more they could have done to help her. And as for the suggestions from factional figures like Don Farrell and Stephen Conroy that her pre-selection was not really under threat, well, here's what Diana Asmar had to say about the meeting that occurred the very day before Kimberley died, a factional meeting. It was a 9 a.m. Zoom meeting of the Victorian Right faction. A motion was moved by Earl Setchers from the Plumbers Union and seconded by Diana Asmar to pre-select Kitching for the Right's Senate spot. Diana Asmar recalled in that Herald Sun piece that one by one the others said, I have no position. They didn't back Kitching. Asmar says the fix was in, Kimberley was in trouble. Now, it's also important to note that this all could have been sorted out by Albanese. The National Executive does have control of Victorian pre-selections, and they'd already sorted out the lower house, but they hadn't settled the Senate. And if her position was safe, as Conroy and Don Farrell say, then Albanese could have called her to tell her so in a quiet chat to stop this anxiety and stress that she was under. The day after that factional meeting, Diana Asmar says she rang Kitching and gave her a blow-by-blow account of the 75-minute Zoom meeting. Here's what she writes about it. Kimberley was a mess. That afternoon, she drove home, armed with the knowledge that it was highly probable her career was about to come to a brutal end. What was going through her mind? Did she panic? Was the workplace bullying she endured over so long all too much? On that drive home, her beautiful heart simply gave out. Diana Asmar writes about how workplace bullying can take many forms. She says the people perpetrating the bullying usually always deny or water down events when confronted about their behaviour. They often get away with it. The cold denial this week by Labor's leadership of Kimberley's bullying was expected. She's now being gaslighted even after she's gone. Diana says, I'm sickened by the sheer hypocrisy of these same Labor politicians wrapping their arms around Brittany Higgins when they themselves perpetrated bullying against one of their own in their own workplace. She says Kimberley confided in me and a number of other friends numerous stories about the nature of the bullying inflicted on her by her Labor colleagues. And the evidence that Diana Asmar goes on to cite is exactly the same as what I've been reporting in The Australian over the past week. It includes so many examples. Kimberley being dumped from Labor's Tactics Committee over unsubstantiated accusations that she said were false. Penny Wong telling her that because she was childless, she wouldn't understand climate change policy. Albanese's failure to congratulate her or even acknowledge when she won a prestigious international award for her work on the Magnitsky Act, human rights laws. And the fact that Penny Wong said this act would be passed, quote, over my dead body, only for Wong to change her mind and announce the policy herself, Kimberley only finding out about all of this from media reports. It also includes, the poor treatment of her, also includes Kitching's isolation at Labor meetings, where her colleagues refused to greet her, sometimes even refusing to acknowledge her existence. It also includes Albanese demoting her from the portfolio of government accountability, one that she was performing in very successfully without telling her. She found out about it from the announcement. Katie Gallagher, Penny Wong and Christina Keneally all deny the allegations of bullying. And Penny Wong has said she apologised for making the childless remark to Kitching. There are clearly questions for Albanese to answer here, for Richard Marles to answer, and for the Senate leadership team to answer. But Albanese, who would, and we all know this to be true, he would usually be demanding to know who knew what when about the bullying allegations. He says there's no need for an inquiry.
Did your deputy Richard Marles ever talk to you about Kitching's treatment? Should he have done so?
No, look, that's a matter for, you go through who said what to whom. I've indicated very clearly, if people wanted to talk to me about issues, they walk through the door, and I have regular meetings with people, including representatives of the groups, representatives of states, as well as individuals. At all times, I'm available to be directly spoken to.
Scott Morrison says this isn't good enough.
The reports that I have seen of members of the Labor Party, Labor members of Parliament, senators, members of the union movement, coming forward and making some very, very serious allegations against not only the leadership within the Senate of the Labor Party, but more broadly in terms of what involvement there has been in turning the other way by the Leader of the Opposition. Well, the Labor Party was always very quick to accuse, but when they have to address these very serious allegations themselves, well, they're very hard to find. I mean, they're living in glass houses, some might say even a crystal cathedral on these things, where they're pretty quick to throw stones. But when it comes to facing up to issues in their own party and addressing what are very serious allegations, and I'm not in any position to know the veracity of those things, these are things that the Leader of the Opposition, that Anthony Albanese, has to face up to. I mean, the campaign hasn't even begun, and already when he gets hard questions, he goes running.
As you know, every Labor frontbencher is insisting, like Albanese, that there is no need for an inquiry. And Albanese keeps defending those accused of bullying. But it's really important to know that not all Labor MPs agree with this. But they are being silenced from speaking publicly for political reasons, because it's 2 months out from a federal election. But they hold strong views. Numerous Labor MPs and senators support an independent inquiry into the bullying allegations, what was done about it, and the culture that they've described to us at The Australian as rotten within the party's senior circles. One Labor senator told us, "I have never seen the culture in the Labor Senate team as bad as this." Another Labor MP said, "People are denying things that so many people know happened." What we are seeing here is that the very people who made Kitching's life difficult are now denying there was ever a problem. The people who didn't support her are trying to decide how she should be remembered and what information about her the media should cover. They are driven by political motivations. They want this all to go away. They don't want accountability. And this doesn't make Kimberley the victim. She was the strongest fighter, a warrior, taking on China and Russia and the most evil dictators on earth courageously. Yet perhaps because of her strength, her talent, senior figures in the Labor Party tried to dull her spark and freeze her out. Maybe they were threatened. They tried to sideline her. They never succeeded.